Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam Trailokyam Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vidyanamidam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanao Bhunaktu Saviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So where are we in our text?
Chapter 29, verse number 9. Other way around. Chapter 9, verse
Chapter
29.
9, verse 29, correct?
Yes.
And who would like to chant the seed? Do you have a page? Chapter 9, it's the lamp of meditation.
Verse 27, correct?
What verse, Mark?
29.
29.
Vedavakyani nirnetum ichhanmi mam satam jana apto padeshamatrena anushtanantu sambhavet. To determine the correct meaning of the Vedic texts, let the learned resort to an inquiry, but practical worship can be performed with benefit according to the teachings of a competent teacher.
Yes, so what we were talking about before class tonight. Even though the scriptures say self-realization is not to be attained by ritual, not by sacrifice, not by pilgrimages, not by sacred baths, not by chanting mantras. But here, Vidyaranya is saying it does serve a purpose. What it does is it purifies the mind. So Ganesh here was talking about how he's been doing a lot of Sri Vidya practice. Now, this is just my opinion, please correct me. But when we study Tripura Rahasyam, and Parashurama talks about Dattatreya giving him instruction on the worship of the goddess. May not be exactly the Sri Vidya practice we have today, but I bet they're very closely related. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, Parashurama has written a text on Sri Vidya practice also.
Okay. So he goes to Dattatreya. What did Samvarta, this great guru, say? I didn't understand a word of what he said. And Dattatreya scopes out what I call the set of the soul. This dude's got a mind like a brick. Lots of grossness. So he instructs him in the worship of the goddess. Parashurama goes off and does this practice for 12 years. And he's moved emotionally, has horripilation, his hair stands on end. The joy that he gets from doing this devotional practice. Then he begins to think, what was it that Samvarta said? Of course, the question that he wanted to know is, what is this world and how does it arise? I'm going to go back to Dattatreya. So it took him 12 years to purify the mind enough in order to be able to receive the wisdom and listen carefully, get what we call sthita prajna, steady wisdom. So I was talking with this other young man I'm working with right now, who comes from the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. Been on long meditation retreats. And he's had experiences of the complete disappearance of the ego. He sees that there's nothing there but the space of pure awareness. But then in the world, he gets terribly triggered and has bouts of low self-esteem, gets paralyzed by inaction, hating how he looks, all sorts of things. So what is that? That's still vasana. So practices of devotion, ritual, kriya, are all ways to continue to remove these kleshas. I think the word the Buddhist English practitioners they translate klesha as defilement. Is that the term you've heard?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We translate it as affliction. But it's the same thing. It's the things that defile or stain the mind. So sometimes we do these practices, intense devotional practice, japa, etc., before we start our deep inquiry. Sometimes we get immediately exposed to the Vedanta. We may have moments of clarity, but we're in what I call the yo-yo state sometimes. I know, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I know, sometimes I don't. And then sometimes it is of value to do these practices. So we want to know, Koham, who am I? But we also want to be able to see the self in and through the world. And we have to reconcile two statements. Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. Oh, it's all illusion. Brahman alone is real. It's all like a dream. But then the other scriptural statement, you've heard me say this how many times? Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. It's all God. Or if you're doing Sri Vidya, it's all the goddess. So we need to be able to be wide awake, alert in the world, detached, but keep our hearts open. This doesn't make sense, just put it on the shelf for now. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
Dhamma sakshat kritistvebam vichareణ వినా నృణాం ఆప్తోపదేశమాత్రేణ asambhavati kutrachit. The direct realization of Brahman, however, is never possible only from the instructions of a competent teacher without the practice of inquiry.
Yes. So, the guru, the external teacher, the preceptor is a temporary psychological device, Swamiji used to say. It can be compared to a midwife. Those of you who've had kids, midwife does not make the baby. The mother does the work. Or sometimes a gardener. At best, the gardener does some pruning. The gardener does not make the plant grow. So, the purpose of the guru well, let me back up a bit. In the Vivekachudamani, after we have the verses on the qualifications of a fit student, a very short section on the qualifications of a fit teacher. And when Shankara has a list of qualities about anything, the most important is usually listed first. And what does Shankara list first? Shrotriyam. Shrotriyam means well versed in the scriptures. What it means is the teacher can wield a valid means of knowledge. Doesn't mean just that he can quote chapter and verse. It means he's familiar enough with the technology of self-realization. That's what the scriptures provide us with. That he can say, okay, this is where you are, this is what you need to practice. Then after that, we'll do this, we'll do this, we'll do this. Idiot in, Jnani out. That's what happens. But you and I must do the work. And what's the principal work that we need to do? Ko hum. Who am I? Or as Vidyaranya has said, Atma Vichara. Inquiry into the self. We must do it. So all this preparatory practice helps us achieve a sattvic mind, a clear mind, a still mind that can tune out. And if the teacher is skillful, he will turn our attentive faculty back on our own self, using the methodology as it's put forward in the scripture. Because it's very powerful. Moksha is only achieved when you and I do the work. Now, our capacity to do the work is God's grace, but still we must do it. Next verse.
Paroksha jnanamashraddha Pratibadhnati netarat avicharo parokshasya jnanasya pratibandhaka. Want of faith alone obstructs the indirect knowledge. Want of inquiry is, however, the obstacle to the direct knowledge.
So we have paroksha jnanam, indirect knowledge, and aparoksha jnanam, direct knowledge. What is the essence of paroksha jnanam? Brahman is. Our lack of faith obscures that. Oh, the scriptures are stupid. It's all superstition. I think people, places, things, and conditions are real. I want love, money, children, prestige. Getting what you want is what makes you happy. We believe that in the message of the scriptures. That's stupid. Who would want to live that way? It looks nihilistic to me. It looks like it's life denying. Who would want that? So, with proper understanding and sadhu sangha, association with the wise, we begin to believe that the message of the scriptures is real. And that inspires us to practice. Abhyasa vairagyacha. Practice and renunciation. With mature renunciation, knowledge comes easily. And then this is not just paroksha jnana, indirect knowledge. Paroksha jnanam, Brahman is. Aparoksha jnanam, direct experience. I am Brahman. My nature is that Chidakasha, vast, empty space of consciousness. Chidananda Rupaham, oh, my nature's bliss consciousness. Satchit Sukham. Wonder of wonder. That comes as the result of inquiry. Next verse.
Vicharyapya parokshena brahmatmanam na vetti chet aparokshyavasanatvad bhuyo bhuyo vicharayet. If even by inquiry one does not get the direct knowledge of Brahman as the self, one should repeatedly practice inquiry. For inquiry, it is prescribed, should continue until direct knowledge dawns.
So this is called jnana abhyasa, the practice of knowledge. And it has two aspects. The first is the via negativa, the path of negation, or what we would call in our scriptures neti neti, Na iti, na iti. I am not the body. I am not the prana. I am not the feelings. I am not the thoughts. I'm not this chidabhasa, this reflection of consciousness in the intellect. God is not the phenomenal world. Vedanta is not pantheistic. God is not prana, is not energy. God is not Hiranyagarbha, the total mind. God is not even Ishvara, the controller of it all. Prajnanam Brahma. God is consciousness. We have the assertive meditation verses. These new define, they point. How do we use both of these in scripture? Tune up the mind, read that section of the verse, and then endeavor to see whether or not this is true about you. The self is pure existence. Do I exist? How do I know I exist? The self is consciousness. Do I have awareness? I have awareness. Am I aware of awareness? Or am I awareness? When we start defining Ananda as no sorrow reaches there. I am the space of pure awareness. There's so many verses that are both negation and assertion. And they point. Now, what holds the ego identity in place? Vasana. Shankara is very clear in his. Would you like some water?
No, but this happens.
I have some cough drops in the other room. Would you like one?
Maybe.
Would you, Puneet, on my dresser, you see a bag of Hall's mentholyptus. Do you see them?
Yeah. Thank you. Agreed.
In Vivekachudamani, one of my favorite verses, Shloka 267. This is aimed at those of us who have moments, maybe even extended moments, of emptiness. But we still get attached and engaged in the world. And the way it reads is this: even after realization of the truth, there exists a strong impression that one is the doer, karta, which is the cause for rebirth. Here, rebirth doesn't mean after I die, I'm born again. It means I re-identify. I think I'm a person. And Shankara says it needs to be conscientiously rooted out. Steady, continuous identification with the self. When identification with the not self starts to arise, when I think I'm a person, endeavor to let it go. Let it go. Then he says it's the annihilation of the vasanas here and now that's considered liberation by the wise. How do I know my mind is under the influence of vasana? I think I'm a person. Is that Varana Shakti, a daily power? Here, Shankara will say, give up concern. Prarabdha will take care of the body. Let go of attachment. Let go of struggle. So this inquiry into the self is viveka vairagyacha. We discriminate between the self and the not self, the real and the unreal. Didn't stop there. Vairagya, that desire to give up attachment to all experiences gained through the senses, and all notions of self, starting from the body up to and including the form of Brahma, the creator. Basically, I think I'm an important, powerful person. All of them must go. Now, in Gita, Lord Krishna says, even a little of this knowledge frees us from great fear. Before steady wisdom dawns on the mind, if I even practice a bit of this discrimination and dispassion, if I'm able to let go of struggling, if I'm able to let go of the compulsion to defend ego, to protect, to justify, to rationalize, to explain, a whole lot of life becomes a whole lot easier. All right, next verse.
विचारयन्नामरणं नैवात्मनं लभेत चेत् जन्मान्तरे लभेतैव प्रतिबन्धक्षये सति. If a person does not realize the self, even after practicing till death, he will surely realize it in a future life when all the obstacles will have been eliminated.
Yes. So, Vedanta is the most compassionate of all religions. In Christianity, you have infinite repercussions from finite actions. If I sin and I die, I go to purgatory or maybe hell if it's a mortal sin. Or if I behave well and I do not sin, I'm good, I go to heaven. Infinite reward for finite actions. But there are people who are consigned to eternal suffering. Vedanta says, no. If you screw up in life, lie, cheat, and steal, hurt people. Actually, you don't even have to wait till you die. You'll probably suffer in this life. But then you go to Papaloka. You will come back in another lifetime, reaping the results of that. But if you've been a yogi, again in Gita, Krishna says, my devotee is never destroyed. Arjuna asks the question, what if I do all this yoga and I don't make it? I don't realize the self in this lifetime. And Krishna says, don't worry. My devotee is never destroyed. You will come back in another life, united with your yoga in an auspicious family. And your knowledge will come very quickly. So Vidyaranya is not saying anything that's not what the Lord said in Gita. Any thoughts? Next verse.
Iha vamutra vidye yaivam suvakritoditam shranvantopyatra bahavo yanna vidhurati shruti. Knowledge will arise either in this birth or the next, says the author of the Brahma Sutras. The Shruti also says that there are many who listen to the teachings on non-duality and yet do not realize in this life.
Yes. So, just because we hear the truth, the non-dual vision of Vedanta, sometimes our minds are just too gross. But no blame. No blame. It's interesting in Gita, one of the questions that Arjuna asks, he says, which is better, to worship the Lord with a form, meaning bhakti yoga, or to worship the Lord in his formless nature, jnana yoga, Vedanta? And Krishna's answer is an interesting one. He says both paths will get you there. But to worship the Lord in his formless nature, meaning Jnana Marga, the path of Vedanta, is very difficult for the embodied. Some people interpret the scripture meaning bhakti yoga is what we mortals in the body are to do. But it doesn't mean just that. It means for the vast majority of people, the path of devotion is the best way. Are they likely to attain self-realization in this life? Probably not. But if we turn our will and our lives over to the care of God, however you understand God, not my will, but thy will be done. If I have a problem, if I have a broken heart, if I have a resentment, Lord, I give this to you. I can't do it myself. I'm grieving a terrible loss. Lord, I give this grief to you. I can't do it. Then we avail ourselves of God's grace. Kripa. If, on the other hand, we try to be what I call spiritually butch, I'm going to do this myself. I'm going to storm heaven. I'm going to make myself happy. I'm a powerful person and I'm going to manifest what I want. And blah, blah, blah. It's exhausting. It's exhausting. And in the end, you see, even if we have a really powerful ego, it's limited. It's limited. So a yogi has to be humble enough to know where they are situated on the path. They might ask for guidance from the teacher, but ultimately, a well-informed intuition is our best guide. What do we need to do? I have absolute faith and confidence in your intuition for you. You'll know. You'll know. No false loyalties in this world. Stupid. Any thoughts on this? I have a student who said, "Oh, I'm just so drawn to do chanting. What's the goddess one? Lalita Sahasranam? Yeah. I have to do this. I have to do this. Every morning she's doing it. Someone else, oh, I'm going back to church, Jim. Is that in conflict with Vedanta? No. Do not let philosophical inconsistency be a barrier to your well-being. You'll know where you're supposed to go. All right, any thoughts on this? And after a while, you're going to begin to see that there's nobody really there doing the sadhana. It's like some people, what are you doing, Jim? Oh, I'm making my hair grow. It's nonsense. Your hair just grows. Is that your new mantra, Jim? Oh, no, I'm making my heart beat. Oh, you don't do that. I tell you, your sadhana is being done. It's the vanity of ego that you think there's a you there doing it as an individual. It's okay. You can have it. In the end, we have no choice. We're going home to God. Everybody is. Next verse.
Garbha eva shayana sanvama deva sanma Garbha eva shayana sanva Garbha eva shayana sanvama devo buddhavan purvabhyasthavichareణ yadvadhyayana yadvadhyayana adishu. By virtue of the practice of spiritual inquiry in a previous birth, Vamadeva had realization while even in his mother's womb. Such results are also seen in the case of studies.
Yes, so we have stories, even here in our modern times. The one that comes to mind is the Kerala saint Amaji, the hugging saint. From a very early age, she would go into ecstasies, into samadhi. Did not have particularly any long sadhana. Was acknowledged as a saint from a very early age. My great hero Ramana Maharshi, the same thing. His sadhana lasted half an hour. I met a woman in the mid-70s. This is after I was doing sadhana. Her name was Grace Cooper Pettifer. This wonderful old English woman. And her father was a Sufi and was responsible for bringing Haswadinyak Khan and Pir Balayat Khan to the West. But she was raised without any veil. The parents were enlightened. She came in with no veil. She used to give these sessions down at a hotel ballroom. She was very, very old, used to wear these ball gowns. She would love it. Didn't really teach, she just glowed. Ah, a wonderful Shakti around. She's one of the only people I've met. Must have done lots of sadhana in a prior life and was reunited with this knowledge in this very lifetime. Some of us, we get an exposure to the work and steady wisdom comes comparatively quickly. 2.5 years. Others of us, we get glimpses. And the primary reason we don't have steady wisdom, the world. Oh, I want to go play with the world. Nothing wrong with the world. The Hebrew psalmist says, the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. Oh God. But if we're attached, where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Whatever I think is the good, that's my God. That's what I worship. No blame. We do it till we don't have to do it anymore. Next verse.
Bahuvaramадhitepi yada nayati chet puna dinantarena dhityaiva purvadhitam smaret punam. In spite of reading many times, a boy may not be able to memorize something. But sometimes, next morning, without any further study, he remembers all that he had read.
So it's interesting how memory works. Now, in Viveka Chudamani, in the preparatory shlokas to the qualifications of a fit student, Shankara uses the term medha. The person who has a keen memory. And there are two ways to look at this. One, just like Vidyaranya is talking about, the capacity to memorize verses. But the deeper meaning is to be able to remember the import of the verse, and even more importantly, to be able to apply it at the appropriate time as we're moving through the day. So what I try to do is give you maxims, slogans, short statements that are useful. It's a spiritual axiom that if I'm disturbed, no matter the cause, I'm the one with the klesha. Boy, is that one useful. That's a condensation, a condensed much of the Vedanta there. If I think I'm a person, I'm deluded. Drop the sense of person. So many of them I try to give you. Hopefully, what you can do then is you'll remember these slogans, these maxims, and be able to apply them at the appropriate time during the day. It's never out there. If I'm disturbed, I'm the one with the klesha. Oh, my boss did blah, 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 blah. Oh, my partner did such and such and such and such. And oh, wait a minute. If I'm disturbed, I'm the one with the problem. Where am I attached? Where am I identified? These are to be used, not just memorized and repeated. Any thoughts on this? And of course, Vidyaranya is saying there may be passages from Scripture that are useful to you. What comes to my mind is the 7th mantra from Mandukya Upanishad. Oh, has everything in it. Everything. Or my favorite shloka from Gita. When a person casts off all the desires of the mind, O Partha, and is satisfied in the self, by the self, then they're said to be a person of steady wisdom. But you will find verses that are useful to you as we make our way through Scripture, not just the ones I'm fond of. So it's not just being able to repeat them. That's just having, a good memory. But medha, a keen memory, means I can bring to mind the teaching at the moment in my life, and I need to apply it. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
कालेन परिपच्यन्ते कृषिगर्भादयो यथा तद्वत् आत्मविचारोऽपि शनैः कालेन पच्यते. As the seed in the field or in the womb matures in time, so in the course of time the practice of self-inquiry gradually ripens and bears fruit.
Yes. So nothing burns up vasana faster than maintaining the practice of self-inquiry. Viveka, vairagya. Discriminate between the real and the unreal. And when I see where I'm attached and identified, drop it. We're given bhakti yoga. We're given karma yoga. We're given kriya practices, breath, visualization, etc. They're all good, but they're not nearly as fast or direct. Viveka, vairagya, self-inquiry. Next.
पुनः पुनः विचारोऽपि त्रिविधः प्रतिबन्धतः न वेत्ति तत्त्वमित्येतद् वार्तिके सम्यगीरितम्. In spite of repeated inquiry, man does not realize the truth because of three kinds of impediments. This has been clearly pointed out in his Vartika by Acharya Sureshwara.
So we're going to take a look at what are the impediments whereby even though I do self-inquiry, I do not achieve steady wisdom. So let's see if he goes into them and enumerates them. I have no idea what text he's referencing here. It's not one I know.
कुतस्तज्ञानमिति चेतद्धि बन्धत् परीक्षयात् असावपि च भूतो वा भावी वा वर्तते अथवा. If you ask why the realization which did not arise before comes now, we shall reply that knowledge comes only with the total removal of impediments, which may be past, present, or future.
Yes. So all we need do is remove the impediments. Then we do not need to begin another process of then realizing the self. The self is always there. What I need to do is remove what obscures it, what obfuscates it. For example, if I take a shower, there's no vent in my bathroom, get out of the shower, I dry off, I look in the mirror, it's all covered by the fog of the steam. If I want to see my face to brush my teeth, I do not need to do two things. I don't remove the fog and then somehow make the mirror have the capacity to reflect. The mirror is there. Its nature is to reflect. All I need to do is remove what obscures. Likewise, what obscures my mind. I don't know how he's going to frame that. He's talking about past, present, and future. Other scriptures will say Dehavasana, Lokavasana, Shastravasana. Various forms of ignorance. Let's see what he says.
adhita veda vedartho yatat eva namuchyate hiranyanidhi drishtanta adidameva idarshitam. Therefore, only by studying the Veda and its meaning, a man is not released. This has been shown in the example of hidden gold.
Hidden goat,
Hidden gold.
hidden goat.
Chandogya Upanishad, apparently.
Okay, do you know the metaphor?
A man, it's from the book, a man in the commentary, a man may walk on the ground but may not know that there's gold hidden below. A man may walk on the ground but may not know that there is gold hidden below.
And he won't get it by just chanting the word gold either. Gotta dig, gotta search. So let me give you practical advice on this. How do I remove these attachments? How do I remove these vasanas? Swamiji always used to say, if you're having trouble in your sadhana, go back to the section in Viveka Chudamani, the qualifications of a fit student. Give yourself a tune-up. Remember what Shankara says, success in spiritual endeavors is entirely due to the degree of the qualifications of a fit student. Other factors such as time and place, while important, are fundamentally secondary. There's another one of those, memorize the verse, but can I remember to apply it? Oh, I'm having trouble. I'm getting anxious. I'm having, anybody look at their stock portfolio today? Oh, did fear of financial insecurity arise? Maybe I need to look at being adhikari and go back to it. Once you're a fit student, self-realization falls into your hand like a ripe piece of fruit. Don't do another process. Beautifully spelled out there. That's it. We do another retreat. Swamiji gave me permission actually to print those qualifications. That would make an excellent weekend retreat, just on the qualifications of a fit student. Thank you for thinking of that. All right, next verse.
Atitenapi mahishi snehena pratibandhata bhibukshastatvam na vedeti gatha loke pragiyate. There is the popular song saying that a monk could not realize the truth, the impediment being his past attachment to his queen or a she-buffalo. I think Mahishi can be interpreted as queen or a she-buffalo.
I have no idea what he's talking about. But if you have an attachment to a person, a place, a thing, a situation, to your status, subtler forms, I want people to like me. I need other people to validate my worth or value or esteem in the world. We can also be attached to negative things. I'm identified with my trauma. I'm identified with low self-esteem. I'm habitual about regret for the past, worry for the future. If we want steady wisdom, we have to go through the mind. Go over them all. This is the great value of long and continuous meditation, hours a day for many days. Just don't do something, sit there. And what will happen is the unloading of the unconscious. All of the vasanas that the Buddhists, I think your Goenka people call sankharas.
Mhm.
Yes. Sanskaras. All of it will arise. You hold it in compassionate awareness, without judgment, without getting involved with it. Followed up the whole mind. Very powerful. And I have students who are doing really well if they can sit when they're here for 10 minutes. Such as the vasana pressure. It's so intense. They're not ready for long and continuous meditation. Next verse.
Anusritya Guru Sneham Mahishyam Tattvamuktavan Tato Yatha Padadvaisha Pratibandhasya Sankshayat. His teacher instructed him of Brahman, knowing his attachment to her, by telling him that Brahman was her substratum. When the impediment was removed, the monk realized the truth properly.
Yes. So, what I invite people to do in the world, understand what is causing our suffering. I am not suffering because I don't have what I want. I'm suffering because I'm wanting. When I was doing my sadhana in the ashram, my nickname for my mind was Mudha. Oh, there you are wanting again, Jim. Can't turn it off like a light switch. Just have to work through it. But the way to work through it is to see, observe the defects of the process. Then the other half of this is you have to pay attention to your happiness. When desire and object of desire become one, it isn't the object, it's a taste of yourself. You mean sex, good food, beautiful music, enjoying nature does the same thing to my mind? Yes. It will vary in intensity and duration, depending on how badly I wanted it and how completely it fulfilled my desire. There's the gradation of gross and subtle. Gross physical objects of desire, the pleasure will be intense but short-lived. If it's a feeling or a thought, more difficult to achieve. Happiness is more subtle, lasting. In the end, the world is shunyata. It's just void. But the substratum of it is ananda. It's the bliss of the Lord. It's yourself. So here, he has sex with the lady, and if it's an auspicious event, and they both climax at the same time, Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. We've just used the forms of the world to momentarily get a taste of the bliss of myself. Make friends with, oh, your honor. But you have to be woke. You have to be awake. You have to be mindful. You have to pay attention to it. If you don't, you're going to think the object of desire has inherent pleasure, then it will sow a vasana and it'll make you want to repeat it. You can't get it according to your own timeline, you're going to get angry. Or when the pleasure leaves, you're going to grieve. Oh, that was such a good vacation. Oh, I wish I could be doing that all the time. And what we miss is right in front of me is an opportunity to get a kiss of the bliss of Brahman, right with what's right there in front of me. Okay, one more and then we'll quit.
Pratibandho vartamano vipaya sakti lakshana prajnanamandyam kutarkascha viparya yaduragraha. The impediments of the present are one, binding attachment to the objects of the senses, two, dullness of the intellect, three, indulgence in improper and illogical arguments, and four, the deep conviction that the self is an agent and an enjoyer.
Yes. So let's parse this one. So in the now, these are the things that get me in my way of steady wisdom. The first one,
binding attachment to the objects of the senses.
yes. When desire and object of desire become one, and I am unconscious of the dynamic, it sows a vasana. The first power of a vasana is a varana shakti. So have to begin to practice vairagya. It doesn't mean we don't enjoy the world. Go see a beautiful sunset. You went to the sequoias. Did you want to put a sequoia on top of the car and take it home? No. But weren't they beautiful? Yes? You can enjoy without attachment. That's how a yogi moves through the world. Next idea.
Dullness of the intellect.
Yeah. Hear the highest truth. Jim, is it okay to eat fish, or do I have to give that up too? Missed the point. Hear the truth. Makes as much sense as it does to a donkey. Dullness. There's a solution to it, and that's intense devotional practices save them. It will make the mind more sattvic. Next impediment.
Indulgence in improper and illogical arguments.
Yes. Here he's probably talking about what we call the Shunyavadins, the scholiasts of the void, the followers of Sunga. I have no idea who Sunga was. But basically, it's a slap at a particular school of Buddhism who say that everything is temporary and consciousness itself is temporary. There's nothing that's real. Now, let me give you an example why this is invalid. We've been sitting here chatting since 7:30. At 7:40, you all cease to exist for 10 minutes. Did you know that? See, if you cease to exist, there's no way to verify the fact that you didn't exist. My direct experience is complete continuity of existence. So if hypothetically being and awareness are themselves impermanent, you can't verify it. Something must be there to illuminate. So the proper understanding is the ego state, the jiva bhavana. Yes, it does disappear, it comes and goes. But something there is that illumines the presence and the absence of the ego. That's proper logic. Next one.
The deep conviction that the self is an agent and an enjoyer.
Yes. So this idea, I am the transmigrating soul. I need to go to the astrologer to learn what I need to do. I regret the past. I worry about the future. I am the doer and the experiencer. Is that all of them?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we'll end here tonight. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.